Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Teal Today with Dallin Canlin. We're going to be talking about desperation. I think this is something you learn as a college student and as a youth, and even in your adult life. There are things that are beyond your control, and despite all of your efforts, you will fall short of different things. And I want to share three quick stories that kind of illustrate this that I thought might be kind of funny and also be a little instructive as well. So, first, we're going to be talking about so the first story has to do with like a week ago. I was with basically I was working on this podcast and working really hard on editing the interview I did with Kelly. And the audio wasn't working like super good because the audio on my side was bad and I was upset about that. So I was working really hard to make it sound better. And then all of a sudden it was 11:30 and then it was midnight and you're not supposed to be at school. Keep in mind I'm at school. I'm not supposed to be on in the school, let alone on the internet and everything. And the security guard comes over to me at like 12:20. It's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm working on a podcast episode and I am so close to being done." He's like, "How much time do you need?" He was really nice about it. It's like, I was like, "Yeah, I could get it done like 25 minutes. He's like, "I'll give you 10 minutes. So I did it in 10 minutes, felt ecstatic and happy. What I wasn't thinking of, though, was how I was going to sleep that night. I was thinking about the podcast, because about the podcast, man, I get so into it. So I'm just walking home and like, yeah, I'm so glad we got it done. I go to open up my door. It is locked. And it is nearly 1 a.m. So none of my roommates, of course, are going to wake up. And I knock on the door. And keep in mind, this is the second night in a row I would be staying at someone else's apartment besides mine. I knock a couple times, nobody answers. I look at my phone, it is at 1%, like it is at right now, so I can record this podcast. Again, desperation, which is why that's the topic of the episode. And it's like sort of a quick episode, sort of a fun episode. Hope it's enjoyable. Anyway, back to the story. So I text my brother James, I text my friend Aaron, I call a couple people, and I'm like, I'm at 1%, and I have the thought, who is somebody that is awake right now? One of my friends is awake right now. Had the thought, Robert, my friend Robert, who I worked on the potato farm, who helped me with getting the podcast started, at least letting me spit some ideas at him and stuff while we were working on the potato farm. I didn't actually spit at him, but I shared ideas with him. He was probably awake. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to reach out to Robin because, like, what if I wake him up, you know? You never know, right? Until you do it. So I just texted him 5 minutes later. He's like, yo, that stinks. Yeah, come over here. So I went over there and had a great time with him and his brother who I hadn't met yet. We just talked about Pokemon, and it was great. But the thing I learned from that, I was very close to taking all of my stuff. I had my podcasting gear and everything, and just going over to one of the benches in the gardens on campus and sleep there. I was so close to doing that. But thankfully, I had a last second prayer, and I was of course praying in my mind, but I had one of those. I sent it, and I sent that ask for help SOS to Robert, and he answered. He was so ready. He was awake. And he was able to help me out. So that was a quick story, and the thing I learned from that is you do not want to get back to your apartment super late. And it is kind of late right now, but I'll be fine. I will get back to my apartment a-okay. Number 2 story, I was so into school, and I hadn't eaten for about 40 hours because I didn't have food, and I was just grinding. I just had school and I had work. I think I was working at Pathway back then. I was just inundated with obligations and stuff, and it was really, I couldn't eat anything. I had no time. I was drinking water, I'm sure, because water's easy to get. Food's pretty easy to get, unless you're a college student. Unless you have to like plan ahead for it. Anyway, I told my roommate at the time, Aaron, about this. I love Aaron. He's awesome. We've been trying to run every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this semester. And so far we've been able to do pretty good at that. Anyway, I told him about my situation. He gives me a 20. And he's like, just go get something. And so I went and got a Little Caesars pizza for $5, and I ate it so fast. And it was amazing. It was just like, there's something so amazing of like being so desperate that you will do anything. I was basically at this point, I was so hungry that, eating food, like eating bark or whatever sounded like a good idea. It was like sounding more like a good idea. And today, I haven't eaten since like 2 p.m. I've just been like working on things. I hopped on this like mentoring, coaching, big conference call thingy that I got invited to because I was in this guy's email list. And so I ate this like little peppermint thing because I was so hungry. I'm gonna go home and eat real fast because I did a really good job of my macroeconomics homework. I'm proud of myself for that. So pat on the back. Watched some videos and figured it out. But yeah, I was desperate. And Aaron came in clutch. Again, I didn't have to look very far. I asked somebody, and he's like, yeah, let me help you out. Because he knows I would help him out too. The third example is today with recording this podcast. It has been a crazy day, and I had to run through all these buildings to find a room, but I found a room that I could record the podcast in, and my phone is at 1%, and so far, we are recording this entire podcast, and what a stinking blessing that is. Yeah, so that's just the quick episode, though. Just, like, being desperate. It's important that, like, you're aware of how you're feeling and that you don't lower your standards, but that you keep believing, you keep hoping, and you do what you can do, and then you just kind of go forward. Being desperate is very interesting because it means you'll take pretty much any option. And I think this can be really beneficial at times because today I was like, oh, if my phone's at 1%, I have to record a podcast episode. There's no other choice. And so it's very valuable in that way. But you also need to be very careful that you're not just, hurting yourself or other things, but that you are aware of your feelings. And that is just kind of another reminder, the desperate thing. So lately I've been bringing my phone on one charge just so I don't, get a little bit sidetracked. And I'm trying so many things this semester. So that's that. Those are the 3 stories. How I almost got locked out of my apartment but stayed at a friend's house. How I almost starved, sort of, but friend helped me out. And how we almost didn't record this podcast episode, but we did. So miracles happen. And it's there's this really cool book, The Power of Everyday Missionaries. It's like spiritual and stuff. And it was written by a member of my church, Clay M. Christensen. But he was also a Harvard business guy. And his son came up with this theory that when you are running out of time, you will do pretty much anything. You'll ask anybody to be on your podcast. You'll ask anybody for a job. And I think this is a wonderful thing when you're able to finally do that and realize that. And I've been really trying to do that and have that sense of urgency. And not just when all my options dry up, but just right off the bat, just go for it. And it's really helpful to have too much, well, not too much opportunity, but you have like ample opportunity, right? You want to have enough opportunity and enough things. Well, it's like the thought that it's easier for a man with a job to find another job than it is for a man without a job to find a job. And so it's always good to be prospecting and looking around so that when things go crazy, you're not going crazy. So this is kind of a more fun episode. I had a good time recording it. I smiled a lot. I love doing this podcast. I really want to see it grow and help more people. And yeah, on Monday, I'm going to really try to do a full deep dive into the podcast, what I want to accomplish with it this year, share some of the behind the scenes stuff I have on my mind, and hopefully get your guys' feedback. I'm going to do a lot of things in that episode so we can get more feedback on the show going forward. We can get maybe your voice in the show. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun because I feel like there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that don't know each other. And I'm all about bridging those gaps so people can meet each other because that's where miracles happen, when we meet each other and get to know each other and share our gifts and talents and just go for those opportunities. So that's all I have for today. Just if you're a little desperate in different ways, just keep looking around, keep trying different things, do what you can, and you can always ask your friends for help. But just learn as much as you can from that experience, recognize how you're feeling, and use it to grow and become better. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to yield today, and it will be a better tomorrow.